welcome everyone on behalf of Sea Gallery to Ruth Allen's Artist Talk today. I thought I'd start by introducing the woman herself. Now, many of you are already familiar with who Ruth is, but I thought it doesn't hurt telling about her accolades. So, Ruth Allen is an Australian-based artist with over 30 years of experience in sculpting hot glass. Allen graduated with a Bachelor of Arts in Glass from Canberra School of Art in 1993 and obtained a Master of Fine Art in Sculpture and Glass from Monash University in 2006. She is a past president of the New Zealand Society of Artists in Glass, and her works are included in many institutional collections, including the Auckland Museum and the National Art Glass Gallery in New South Wales. Allen works alongside her partner Joshua Rao in a warehouse come studio space in Coburg North, where the pair have worked tirelessly toward the vision of building a functional hub for fabrication of glass, ceramic, metalworking, and woodworking for artists and designers, alongside the fabrication of their own ambitiously scaled works. So, welcome, Ruth Allen. Ruth, we'd love to hear more about your education, experience in glass, and how that shaped your studio and pursuits as an artist, fabricator, and educator.
Thanks, Rachel. I just want to have a little moment and say thank you, Rachel, for inviting all of the AusGlass people to a floor talk whilst the conference is going on, and to show off the work to my community and my peers. It's really important, and it's an excellent gallery to have this exhibition at. To answer your question, I think that it's really important to address my educational background. I feel very privileged about my degree courses that I participated in. I went to Canberra School of Art in 1989 and did a 4.5-year degree. So at that time, there was a lot of money around, and the school was really equipped, and it had a high artist in residence program, and it was directed by Klaus Moyer, who was an exceptional arts practitioner himself. He nurtured us students. There was only 4 students in a year and 16 students in the whole 4 years, which meant that we got time, we got attention, we got hands-on to the equipment, and I think I was blowing glass approximately 6 days a week. Tom was also at Canberra School of Art at that time, and Tom's also on my team to execute a good portion of this work that we're looking at. I think without that hands-on experience, I would not have the deep understanding of hot glass as a material. And my work is a lot about the material. I feel as though, as I've moved through my practice, which is 30-odd years, the relationship that I have with glass has evolved. So first of all, in the first 10 years, you're like goofing around and you're like, wow, it's so great, everything you do is so great, apart from the ones on the floor where you go, oh, boo. And then you strive for control, because I'm a hot glass worker. I chose to do that and I didn't waver. I wanted to be able to execute the forms that were in my head. So then I worked really hard at achieving control. And then once you have control, which is, let's say, another 10 years you're working on that, then you develop your expression alongside. And so at some point, you and glass are a 50-50 collaborative unit. That's the way I see it anyway. And now in my practice, I'm about allowing the glass to really be what it is as a material. So it's a moving material, it's a translucent material, it plays with light, it's liquid, and it's solid. So that's, especially in these 2 works here, that's what I've been focusing on.
Wonderful. So we sort of touched on your education and where that's led you today, which sort of leads you to where I met you. I have to say that I found Ruth through Instagram. I'm not going to lie. It's one of the best resources. And when I came across Ruth's work, I was really excited by what she was doing. You know, not only was she one of the leading female voices in glass, being, you know, a practitioner herself, but also an educator, assisting other artists with their work. You know, I saw what she was doing, you know, with creating her own line of production-based works, you know, the education process that she was providing, and then also I was interested to kind of see, well, what else may be bubbling away in there. Sorry about the pun, but I just had to. So, you know, and I thought it'd be interesting to work with someone like Ruth. We hadn't, as a gallery, experimented with someone in working in glass. So, and you know, as a gallery, our focus is on artists that are working in three-dimensional materials. So that's probably a differentiating factor between our gallery and some of the other galleries. And you know, artists that with that material can really transform a space. So when we began our conversations, they were largely about making work that could form a part of a visual language for large and small scale installations. So why don't you tell us a little bit about Invisible Forces, which everyone can see here, and how our collaboration together shaped what we see here today.
Well, I was very excited when Rachel approached me because Rachel is covering a big design sector. So in actual fact, I see myself a lot as a designer as well. You know, Omega primarily designer, and then I have my own personal expression which goes into the artistic field. And so to be on the pulse with a gallery and a design showroom and clientele which cover all those genres, it was a perfect match for me, I felt. The work that we talked about, I think I've always wanted to do large scale installation work, so it was only natural to look at the walls and get very excited about, who can't get excited about white walls, right? But how is it going to be installed, and how is that going to operate within a space, a public space, a domestic space? What kind of client is going to be attracted to that work, and what is the conversation about that, around that work? So to make pieces that are modular, fits into a criteria, pardon the pun, where you can buy singular or duo or trio, or you could do a whole wall of these pieces. Similarly to the gust, or the ribbons, as I'm affectionately calling them, and then the high phase. So in a way, the premise of the show was let's give people a taste of what you can do, and then from that, architects and developers and all sorts of people come to you and say, oh my gosh, I love that. And that person as your artist and their portfolio, and we can work with them to make another work or similar works, or I want that work.
Yeah.
For me personally, I wanted to push my boundaries, I wanted to push my expression, so I wanted to go big. And I also, as I said earlier, was wanting the material itself to really be the object and be the element that attracts you. And what attracts me to glass is the light play, most of all, I think. And so as the sun moves over and the day moves, then this whole work changes. And I mean, you're mostly familiar with glass, so you yourselves know this and probably enjoy that right up there yourselves. I wanted it to be challenging to myself, and the process really of making these pieces was that I did a lot of work in my own studio to get the methodology, to work out how to actually make it, and then I went to the Canberra Glassworks and got the best team that I knew together to execute the biggest works. So that was Tom and Ben Eddles, and then two of my people, Juniper Massioni and Charlotte Ward. And so with that 5-person team, then, and that experience, so Tom and Ben both having 30 years themselves under the belt and more. We went to school together, so we're all a bit the same. But that's over 100 years of hot glass experience on the floor to try and execute these ribbons anyway, which we brainstormed over and over and over again. We only had 2 days and we came up trumps in the end. But that was important for me to really push the boundaries of what glass can do and what I can do and what I think my community or the glass people have seen before.
Yes, and we'll see a little bit of that in the video after the talk.
I made a video.
So it's quite interesting to see the
Claire
background
said,
of
make the video.
Yeah,
Document it.
yeah, absolutely. So now you spoke a bit about your education and how important light was in the development of your work. Is there a particular body of work or experience that has been formative in developing you as an artist and your investigation in light refraction?
I think the body of work that was paramount in that moment which I changed my trajectories and focused on the shadow and realised it was 3-dimensional. It took me a while, but it was my master's degree, or halfway through that process of doing the master's, where I had what I was making, which was a synergetic form, and a lot of you would be familiar with that, but it was a net. It was hollow, inside, outside, and I had it in the sunlight and I was playing around with it and I was twisting it, and the shadow was this voluminous 3-dimensional image, and it completely bowled me over. And at that point I went, right, okay, so let's just make it bigger. And the graduating work from that was a 3.5 metre orb covered in these voluminous forms, rotating with one directional light, so that the shadow was larger than the human being, and it became illusionary as it rotated on the wall. You felt like you could walk into the wall, and I felt as though it was this interdimensional language where the glass itself had shown itself to be 4-dimensional and the shadow was 3-dimensional, and it was cast on a 2-dimensional plane. So that really made a concise kind of manifesto for me. And since then I've been projecting light from one direction and playing with those refractions and really wanting to illuminate that, because I think it is that fluidity within the static, and it does just change with the sun moving overhead.
And we've seen that in the gallery, especially in the afternoon. This work in particular, when the sun hits the work, it creates all of these light refractions that completely change the work, and you see it in a new light, in a new way, and it's pretty incredible. So tell me now, I had a new appreciation for glass artists after I saw the video that Ruth made, to be honest, and then the work itself. Glass is a difficult medium that takes incredible skill and years to master. What did you find to be the most challenging aspect of creating these particular works? And can you walk us through the process for each series?
Certainly. I think the trickiest thing, which was very surprising, was communicating with my team. So interesting, because I think I'm a pretty good communicator, and I think my team are really great listeners. But what I realised, so again, I had 2 days in Canberra and I'd done all of this groundwork. I knew exactly, I felt, how to make both works. And we had, for these ones, we had a former. It was 1600 if I remember correctly, and big chunks of wood that the ribbons got laced around, and I knew the setup, knew the temperatures, and even though I'd only worked on a 2-person team, I actually felt pretty confident. And then when we got there, there was all these teething problems, where I was not the one in control of the heat or the weight, and because I couldn't, because I don't have the muscle, unfortunately. And it came down to the exact words that we needed to deliver to Tom and to Ben, and it wasn't, and maybe, I was probably a bit sort of flustered or a bit excited, and also see how they go. You go, okay team, so this is that brief. Oh, I forgot to mention this and forgot to mention that. And so in the first day, let's say the ribbons we didn't achieve, and with this very short time frame, it's really important I had to get my act together. So in the night, which I didn't sleep that night, I was like, what's really going wrong here? Like, why is this not happening? And I nutted it out in my sleep, and then could come in the next morning and say, okay, so this is actually where it's not quite right. And of course, they understood exactly what I was saying, that it was on me that in that first day I didn't go, okay, so this is actually, it was a detail, you could say, that was overlooked in the moment. So that's probably one of the most difficult parts of that 2 days experience, but also a fantastic learning moment, not only for me, but for my team around me, because I've got these two young people who I'm training up, and they're like, oh, I really made a mistake. Well, it wasn't quite like that, but it was for me.
Yeah.
Well, not a mistake, but just awareness of the absolute minute detail that you had to, or I had to deliver to my team for them to be able to fully understand. And after we got that, we just pumped them out. And then made peace, which was fun and games all the way, because it was like a climbing wall, and we just dressed the glass in different combinations with the idea, this piece is called Dust, the idea of the wind, the invisible force, comes in and flutters it, and then it's seized in that moment. It's frozen in time.
So that work in particular, and everyone can see in the video, was a very challenging work. These two slightly different. Maybe talk a little bit about Hi-Fi and centrifugal twist as well. Did you face the same sort of, was it about the communication? I know that work was largely made in Canberra. Some of this work was made in your studio, except for the work in the front window, which is much larger and had to be made in Canberra. Yeah. Were there any other, challenges in the process or learnings? That work is mirrored on the inside. So how did you work with the mirroring artist to kind of achieve what you were looking to do?
The high phase, I made a lot more than what you see here. I did a lot more colour, and I only chose 3 that were coloured, that did what I wanted them to do. I also wanted the silver predominantly because of the clarity, the cleanness. I like that juxtaposition, that's such a big reason, of the mirrored work and the subtlety of these 2 pieces, where it's all about the light play, because it's reflecting back at you. You can see yourself, you're really distorted. The room's distorted. If you lived with that and that was in your hallway, your world would be distorted. I enjoy, maybe I'm just in the shiny phase as well. Glitter, shiny, sequins, all those kinds of things. Just sort of, I'm attracted to it, so I wanted to do that.
So making multiple works was a really big part of, I guess, making the complete works, in that you wanted to experiment with lots of different colors, and ensure that it was actually achieving the result you wanted.
I think I've always worked with multiples. That's how I get large scale.
Yeah.
You just make lots and lots and lots and lots because
Yeah.
you can only physically make something so big. So if you really wanted to cover a wall, you would make hundreds of them. And also, there's always seconds.
Yeah.
There's always the ones that don't quite work. And I think even in Canberra, we made not so many, like 3. And even over the course of those 3, we got better at how the arc actually sat. You think it's easy. It's not actually that easy. It took a long time to work out how to make a nice arc. It's just how it is. I mean, anything. But I think that, I mean, I've affectionately nicknamed these ones the rubber bands. I think these were one of my favourite to make because we didn't struggle so hard. It came together as I thought it should. I think the first one might have been a bit but the rest were like right on song. So that was a blessing and really fun. I think Ben had probably one of the most difficult tasks in that making process because he had to physically handle a band which was moving, sort of not out of control, but just loose. And yeah, I certainly couldn't make them that big in my space.